Hello. Hello. Hi. Class. Testing 1 2 3. I'm testing 1 2 3. Okay, hey class. Welcome to my 5 stories that we went through class, including vision, audition, gustation, olfaction, and the somatosensory systems. Okay, up first I had the vision, and everybody say vision. Okay. So vision is this. Here you see a picture of the eyeball, and you see where you have a small picture over here, and you have a bigger picture that I have drawn out myself. I made sure I put the smaller picture up there because I know my drawing isn't so good. So here you have the eyeball, and basically with the eyeball, with the vision system, this is when the light hits the eye and it goes through the cornea, basically. And when the light hits the cornea then the light then shines through to the pupil, which controls the light in the iris, as you see labeled, and the light in the iris encounters the lens, and then the lens is bent till the light hits the retina, and the retina has 5 levels of it. And then once your eye hits the once the light hit the iris, this is where you get the color from, and this is controlled by the ciliary muscle, and this determines the size of the pupil. And in vision, the first stimulus, the stimulus is the electromagnetic spectrum of about 380 to 760 nanometers, and once reflected off the image, the pattern enters the eyeball. Okay, and in the eyeball, we have another thing that goes on is transmission. And transmission happens from the amacrine, bipolar, and horizontal part. And at the end of the photoreceptors or the coreceptors at the top, or the rod receptors at the bottom, is for transduction. And cognition then this is where cognition in the brain takes place. And cognition, as you can see here, I have another picture, also that I have drawn and I have attached a picture to, and it shows the optic nerve, the optic chiasm. Sorry for the pronunciation. Sorry for the pronunciation of the words. And the optic tract, the LGN, the MGN, and the primary visual cortex. And here is where the LGN is located, and the primary visual cortex, as you can see down here. And it's a whole system of things where the optic nerve, the optic chiasm, and the optic tract are located. And from here, I'm going to take you to audition. Basically, where everybody say, I can hear you, I can hear you. And excuse me, my slides are a bit mixed up, but this is the first slide. And this slide basically shows how we hear things. And then it's often determined by the aptitude, which is the volume of how high something is, or the frequency of how high or how low something is. And depending on how fast these lines go like this, that shows that's the higher the pitch is. And when you see the lines like this, that's how low it gets, like oh, and it goes to oh. And in this stimulus of the ear, I'm going to go back a slide. I have also labeled it. Sorry for this, but as you can see over here, the light blue, that's the malleus. The dark blue over here, the incus. And the other dark blue curve over here is the stapes. You have the vestibular over here. You have the cochlear nerve over here, the cochlear over here, and the tympanic cavity, the tympanic membrane, and the external auditory canal. And here you have over here the actual outer layer of the ear. And in the stimulus of the ear for audition, you have between 15,000 and 20,000 hertz. And the compression of the air is collected by the outer ear, and then turned into vibration in the middle ear, and transduced in the inner ear. The first thing it hits is the tympanic membrane, which has bones connected by tiny ligaments, where you can see here the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. And air comes in and moves the tympanic. Also, in the primary auditory cortex, you have the cognition, which is the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. And as you can see, going back to transduction, here I have, this happens in the cochlear. And if I go back, the cochlear is this purple thing that you see right here that I just marked green. I have blew it up and made it bigger. And in here, transduction take place, and this is due to the movement of the hair cells. Sorry, give me a minute. And the third part is the transmission, and this is the transmission pathways within the brain. As you can see, I have drawn both of the things again. Sorry about that. I have both up here because I wasn't too sure as to how well you all will understand my drawing. Sorry, guys. Okay. And after the hearing or audition part of the systems, we're going to talk about the gustation. And I'm sure everyone is familiar with this. This is where our taste buds and everything of that nature is located. And as you can see, I have also drawn my tongue on top of having the picture that was previously given to us about the tongue. And this is called gustation. And this is basically, like I said, where we taste things. And this helps, our brain helps determine how we taste something and whether we like it or not. It starts with the tongue. The tongue has five different kinds of receptors. I'm sorry about that. Where we have the sweet, which is sucrose, the sour, which is the HCl, the bitter, which is the quinine, the salty, which is the NaCl. Sorry about that. And the meaty, which is the MSG. And as you can see over here, the taste buds are located on the papilla. And there are taste receptors that are located on top of the taste buds. And it makes its way up to the part of the brain. I'm going to show you my next picture. Makes its way up to the part of the brain where that controls if we like it or not, and help determine what the taste actually is that we're tasting. One moment, please. In transduction, inside of the gustation, this is when substances taste for salty, for instance, and then you have the saltiness receptors, which is detected the presence of sodium. And then sodium ions cross into the membrane and produces the action potential, and so forth, for the sweetness, the bitterness, and so forth. And then the transmission Okay, and then we have the transmission that takes place within the gustation. And in this, although each receptor detects one kind of taste, several receptors create a particular firing pattern that is perceived as a single taste experience. Yummy! Tastes good! That's where this picture comes from. You see the tongue out. Okay, class, as you can see, I have skipped to the next slide, and this is olfaction. Everybody say olfaction. And this is where we take smell. And basically, this is where these are the parts that allow us to accomplish the different smells, from the olfactory bulb to the microcells. These are all of the things that are connected within the olfaction system: the frontal cortex, the thalamus, the motor cortex, the olfactory cortex, and so forth. And olfaction is the chemical response that contacts the membrane inside the nose, and in the stimulus, which is the important part for the flavor or the texture or and the aroma of food. Excuse me for that. And basically, with this, they had the transduction, and in the transductions, these cells line the nasal cavity, as you can see, and each cell in the cilia, where I just highlighted where it's green at, where the olfactory receptors are located, and synapses, the olfactory receptors on the olfactory bulb, which is over here on here and up here on here. And basically, in transmission, the olfactory receptors are stimulated, and cells in the olfactory bulb, axons, synapses in the olfactory area, and the cerebral cortex, also known as the olfactory cortex. One moment, please. And right from the olfactory or olfaction system, we're going to jump to the somatosensory system. Excuse me for the pronunciation of these words. Okay, and in the somatosensory system, this basically monitors the sensations of the body and the movement, and it includes multiple systems. I don't have a video that I recorded for myself. An image that I drew out myself. But here you can see where I have the somatic sensory cortex, the ventral, posterior nuclear complex, which is in the thalamus, the midbrain, the medulla, and the spinal cord. And I'm going to jump forward, and you can see the other picture that is connected to the somatosensory system. And basically, in the stimulus and the somatosensory system is where different types of mechanical stimuli takes place. And I don't have an image here, but it is listed in the text. If you can go to your book in table 7.1 on page 205. And the stimuli includes pain, or cell injury, or hot and cold, which is the physiological cell injury range. And the movement of hairs on the skin surface, displacement of the skin, light touch, skin stretch, or also stretch or injury joints that are inside of the muscle. And basically, all these are associated with the types of receptors that are sensitive to them. This is what they all have in common. And then in transduction, this is where the receptors are associated with the different types of stimuli. And they have free nerve endings, hair follicle receptors, and so forth. And these receptors are located in the skin and in the joints and muscles. Stimulation of a touch receptor opens sodium channels in the axon, thereby starts an action potential. And in the transmission of the somatosensory system, information from the touch receptors on the head enter the CNS and through the cranial nerves, such as the cranial nerve 5 or the 5th cranial nerve. And then the somatosensory information from the receptors below the head enter the spinal cord. If you have any questions about my system story, be so kind to please leave your comments and let me know. This is my first time recording myself with my 5 systems, and I might have missed a couple of things, but if you write in my comments and let me know everything that I missed, I'm sure that I can come back and re-answer everything for you. Thank you for listening to my system story, and have a good year.